Good morning, Wiz Nation. Good morning, Mystics Nation. And welcome to another video of DC Hoopla. Make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe to the video on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter at DC Hoopla. The D is capitalized, the H is capitalized. And you can also follow me on my Instagram page, same name, DC Hoopla. All the letters are lowercase. So last night was draft lottery night. And congratulations to the Detroit Pistons for winning the #1 draft pick in this upcoming NBA draft. Congratulations to them. Houston is picking second, the team that we traded John Wall for. Cleveland, man, I tell you, this team, this organization, they just have nothing but straight luck. They're actually picking third, and Toronto is just picking fourth. The Wizards, they weren't in the lottery. And there are some fans that are probably happy that they weren't in the lottery. And there are some fans, such as myself, that's not happy that they weren't in the lottery. So Washington is picking 15th. And me as a fan, I'm looking at certain teams that I believe are in a good spot to change their season next year. And that's Cleveland and that's Toronto. Because both of those two teams, they started off pretty good this past season, and then of course, they conceded and, started losing basketball games. But let's take the Toronto Raptors for example. They're picking fourth. And Toronto is, mind you, is 2 years removed from winning a championship. They won the championship in 2019. And, they had Kawhi Leonard at that time. I want to say Serge Ibaka was on the team as well. But they were a team, I said team. Dang, I must be Nene Hilario saying that. Excuse me. But they were a team that won a championship just 2 years ago. Now, with them having the number 4th pick, and then they also had Pascal Siakam, who's actually a solid piece for them. They have an opportunity to get one of these guys with that number 4 pick. I don't know who that player could be. I don't know who they're eyeing. They may be hoping that Jalen Suggs, out of Oklahoma State. No, I'm sorry, Jalen Suggs, not out of Oklahoma State. I'm sorry. Jalen Suggs, why am I having a brain fart of what college he comes to? I think he's with UConn, if I'm correct. I got to go back and look. Who I think would be a very solid player in the league. I'm not going to say he's great, but I think he would be a solid player in the league under the right coaching. Toronto actually has an opportunity to grab somebody like that. Cleveland has an opportunity to grab somebody like that and possibly contend to go to the not championship, but at least contend for a playoff berth next season. But there are a couple of teams that I look at and say to myself, well, what are they going to do? And that's the Golden State Warriors, because they actually get the chance to pick twice in the lottery. They actually won the ownership of the Minnesota Timberwolves, where they have the 7th pick in the draft, and then they also picked, I believe, 13th in the draft as well. So they picked twice. And Golden State, in my opinion, I believe that they're going to be looking at moving one of those picks. And I think it's going to be that 7th pick. They're definitely going to throw that around to a team that's interested in moving up in the draft. And Washington should be one of those teams that be looking at moving up in the draft with that pick. OKC is also picking in the top top 7th as well. And they're a team that I would like for Washington to consider to move up in the draft. Now, let's talk about two teams. So it's still going to be Washington, but the other team is the Pelicans. Those are two franchises right now that I think are kind of in a dilemma where they need to make a decision of what they want to do. Now, the Pelicans are going to be picking number 10 in the draft. And if you saw the reaction that I saw from Swin Cash, it wasn't a reaction of her being happy about that. Because the Pelicans are in a situation where Zion Williams' family is saying that, hey, they want him out of New Orleans. So, of course, for Swin Cash, she looks at it like, hey, us picking number 10, that's not a good thing. Because we don't get a chance to get another player that's good to go along Zion Williamson to convince him to stick around. And they don't want to be forced to trade this kid while he's still in his rookie contract. At the end of the day, they own his bird rights right now. But if it's true that he's not happy in New Orleans because he doesn't see a future for them because of the fact that, you know, they just fired their head coach. That's the third head coach he's been under since he's been in the league. They got to make a decision of what they want to do. And then we come to my Washington Wizards, a team that wanted to go to the playoffs so bad, only to get embarrassed in the first round. But the narrative is, well, hey, at least they didn't tank. At least they didn't, they went out there and they left it all out on the floor. They played hard. They didn't concede in the season and say, well, we're going to just go ahead and lose games and go to the lottery. Well, here's the thing. There's other teams in the Eastern Conference that's going to be better next season. And we're still trying to run it back with a shooting guard that we're begging and pleading to stick around long term, and a point guard who we're hoping that can drink the fountain of youth and bring us those OKC days. Like, he's clearly on the wrong side of 30. We're also capped out. How are we going to get better if we are capped out? Nobody wants to come here. They don't see this as a destination to play basketball. No matter how much recruiting Bradley Beal does in Russell Westbrook. Question it, do Russell Westbrook want to stay here now that his favorite head coach has been canned? And let's talk about that very quickly, because I've talked about that plenty of times. But the audacity that the Wizards would even have the idea of thinking that Scott Brooks will stay if he's willing to replace his coaching staff. Why are we even having that kind of conversation with him? The man's contract has ended. So why are we having discussions with him and saying that, hey, we'll keep you on if you get rid of your coaching staff? That is very crazy to me. So Washington is in a situation right now where they're going through an identity crisis. They're trying to convince the fan base that, hey, we're really trying to win a championship. But if you're a fan like myself, you're going to ask them, well, how? How are we going to win a championship? How can we win a championship when clearly we have no salary cap to get better? How are we going to win a championship when clearly an elite player is not willing to come to Washington? How are you going to get that player to come to D.C.? Don't sell us on no DeMar DeRozan, or no Jeremy Grant, or anybody else that's like third tier. Don't sell us on that. You got to sell us on a KD type player. You got to sell us on Zion Williamson. You have to sell us on somebody, a name that's really going to put asses in the seats. Because DeMar DeRozan, who's on the wrong side of 30, Jeremy Grant, who's young, but he's not really a household name. Those names doesn't tell us that we're trying to compete for a chip. Those names are telling us that we're trying to keep status quo. We just want to go to the playoffs. And we hope and pray that these guys are enough to maybe somehow, someway get lucky to get into the Eastern Conference Finals. It ain't enough to get us to the finals, not unless the team that we're playing against has an amount of injuries that we just happen to beat them and manage to luck up and get in there. Like we really need to get in there by proving that we can get in there. And when I'm looking at teams like, Toronto and a team like Cleveland who have an opportunity to change their fortune around because they got, in the draft, they got high draft picks, and this is a draft that's very deep, and we do the exact opposite and go in the direction that we want to try to compete and go to the playoffs. Come on, man. To me, these are the frustrating things about being a Wizards fan, when we just do things backwards, when we make things more complicated. I saw on Twitter last night when a person that I follow, who's also a blogger for the Wizards, says, well, they're glad that teams that were in the play-in didn't leapfrog into the lottery. So they were happy with the results. Had one of those teams leapfrog, they don't know how to where they react. I'm like, come on, man. Come on. It doesn't matter. Those teams understood their situation. They're still in a better predicament than we are in. Maybe it's maybe the Pacers are not, because they were one of those teams that didn't leapfrog up in there. But not the Bobcats, but the Hornets, they got LaMelo Ball. I think they have an opportunity to get some players that want to come there and play. You just never know. What if Zion Williamson gets traded to the Hornets? Just for shits and giggles. Let's just throw it out there. Zion Williamson is originally from South Carolina, so he'll be right at home. But then you're playing along with LaMelo Ball. Boom. Oh, man, that's a team that just leapfrog you even more now. Look more exciting. That's a team that's in your division. Like, come on, man. We have to really, really, really face reality here and say, you know what? Maybe we should go ahead and just push the reboot button. Look, man, if Bradley Beal doesn't want to be here, you got to understand that he doesn't want to be here. I mean, I'm not mad at him if he wants to go somewhere else and win a championship. The man says he wants to win. And I don't believe just going to the playoffs is enough. But Bradley Beal also likes his situation in Washington because he can control it. We gave him the control in Washington. You gave him LeBron James-like power in Washington, even though he's not LeBron James. Hell, he's not even Rick James. He's not even James Brown. But we gave him that kind of power. Anyway, sorry to go on my rant. It's just the frustrating things about this team that just disappoints me with the Washington Wizards. I mean, again, we make shit complicated. We really shouldn't. And this is the reason why we haven't won 50 games since the 80s. And this is the reason why we haven't won a championship in 43 years. Because we make things complicated. Last night, I should be sitting here talking about who we could actually draft in this lottery. I can't tell you who we're going to draft with the number 15 pick. Because to be honest with you, I believe with the 15th pick, we the most likely would trade it away, thinking that we might be able to get somebody good, when the most we'll probably be able to get, that would be the way that we would get a guy like Jeremy Grant. You had to trade that pick away. And all he would do is just grant us a few extra wins and maybe another 8th seed. Or better yet, we'll just be lucky enough to get the 7th seed. Newsflash, Washington. If you happen to get those seeds, you do understand that you'll be doing the same thing you did to get the 8th seed. You'll have to be playing in the play-in to get that, to secure that position. Like, come on, guys. Make it make sense. Go ahead and concede. And look at the draft. it's not always a bad thing. But the reason why, and I'll end my video with this, the reason why this team doesn't value the draft is because this team doesn't always draft well. And a lot of that is due to the fearmonger that Ernie Grunfeld has plagued on the Wizards fan base. And even the organization. Because of a lot of the draft blunders he made during his tenure. John Wall and Bradley Beal, those were no-brainers. But Jan Vesely, that was a blunder. You know, we didn't really have to draft Otto Porter in 2013 for the number 3 pick, but I believe that that was nothing but a Ted Leonsis pick all the way. So, again, Wiz Nation, you know, congratulations to the Houston Rockets. Congratulations to the Cavs, because they just literally have luck on their side. And definitely congratulations to the Pistons, who are drafting number 1 in this year's draft. Cade Cunningham is most likely going to be their number 1 draft pick, which they're comparing him to being a Grant Hill type player. I would have loved to have that here in Washington. But the organization had other plans. So hopefully the organization would do something within the next month to make me happy. And that would be consider moving Bradley Beal. Consider moving Westbrook. I mean, at this point, we might as well. It is nothing wrong with pushing the reboot button. We've done it plenty of times. But if we push this reboot button, we got to do it right. We got to do it. We can't do this minor rebuild because all we're doing is prolonging the inevitable. So anyway, Wiz Nation, you guys have a good one. Like, share, and subscribe. Subscribe to me on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter. And follow me on IG. This is Jose. You guys have a good one.